In St. Matthew's Gospel, chapter 8, verse 1 says, when he was come down from the mountain, great multitudes followed him, and behold, there came a leper and worshipped him, saying, Lord, if thou wilt, thou canst make me whole, clean. Jesus put forth his hand, touched him, saying, I will, be thou clean. And immediately, his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus saith unto him, see thou tell no man, go thy way, show thyself to the priest, offer the gift that Moses commanded for a testimony unto them. When Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion, beseeching him, saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. And Jesus said unto him, I will come and heal him. Centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. For I am a man under authority, having soldiers under me, and I say to this man, go, and he goeth, and to another, come, and he cometh, and to my servant, do this, and he doeth it. Then Jesus heard it. When he heard it, he marveled, and said to them followed, verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And I say unto you that many shall come from the east and the west, shall sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, but the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I could continue to read this, but you will find that in that particular text there are many examples of his healing power and faith demonstrated. But I would like to add to this particular text and encounter with Jesus Christ. I would like to look for a minute at Mark chapter 2. And the reason I'm reading so much is because oftentimes we assume that everyone is aware of the biblical story because we matriculated it so often that we just take what he knows. But in Mark chapter 2, it goes like this. And again, he entered into Capernaum after some days, and it was noised that he was in the house. Interesting. And straightway many were gathered together, insomuch that there was no room to receive them, no, not so much as about the door. And he preached the word unto them, and they came unto him, bringing one sick of the palsy, which was born of 4. And when they could not come nigh unto him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was. And when they had broken it up, you're tearing my house up, they let down the bed wherein the sick of the palsy lay. When Jesus saw their faith, he said unto the sick of the palsy, Son, thy sins be forgiven thee. But there were certain of the scribes sitting there and reasoning in their hearts, why doth this man thus speak blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God only? And immediately when Jesus perceived in his spirit that they so reasoned within themselves, he said unto them, why reason ye these things in your hearts? Whether it is easier to say, the sick of the palsy, thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, arise, take up thy bed and walk. But that thou may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sins. He said to the sick of the palsy, I say unto thee, arise, take up thy bed and go thy way into thine house. And immediately he arose, took up the bed, went forth before them all, insomuch that they were all amazed and glorified God, saying, we never saw it on this fashion. Now, I read all those stories for you to simply look at somebody and just tell them faith has no ceiling. You didn't sound excited about it, but look at somebody else and say, there is no ceiling. There is no ceiling. The stories are indicative, and I read Matthew because there are striking characteristics of faith particularly in the 8th and the 9th chapter. And what I see more than anything is the audacity or the boldness of faith, particularly because the odds and the deck is stacked against the people who exhibit faith. And I had to read Matthew before I focused on Mark, because he says something interesting, and that is that the children of the kingdom end up being casted out, whereas those people who don't spend a lot of time in church seem to be the ones that end up with the blessings of God because of the intensity of the way they approach him. And it's a whole nother message, that message. And it's the complacency that somehow we get when we have become experts at ceremonialism and pious religious ritual, where I can tell you right now, we're very good at having church, but we can have church and still not minister. Oh, we're experts at having church. Oh. And to the point where if you're an outsider or someone who has just come to the house, many times you feel out of place. And for those of us that grew up in church, we were never out of place. We weren't always right. But we understood the culture, and we understood the dynamics of what it is that we were doing. And but there are those who come into the house, knowing how secluded and exclusive we can be. And yet still, because they have a serious need, they are willing to ignore the fact that we can be so pretentious and we can look at them so funny, but their need outweighs even the way that we react to them, because they seriously want something from God. And many times, because we have become small and because we have this narcissistic self-importance, and we forget that we're only here because of the grace of God. And we put our time in, and we're seniors. We got seniority in the city of refuge or whatever church we are associated with. And we fail to understand that it is only intensity and drive that God responds to. If you're not willing to seek him, yes, and if you're not thirsting and you're not hungering for righteousness, then don't expect to be filled. That's just it. When you look at this, you find that the leper, along with others, in chapter 9, you've got the father of the dead girl, you've got the bleeding woman, you've got the blind men, and you've got the house crashers. And if there's anything, you will find that everybody is determined to get into the presence of Jesus. I've heard enough about him, and so much has been said about him, that I seriously want to get into his presence. I'm so glad that I really don't have to come to church to get into his presence. Oh yes, oh yes. And many times I come to church because I have been in his presence. Had it not been for having been in his presence, I probably wouldn't have got up and decided to come to the house of God. And oftentimes coming to the house of God is benefiting each other, It is my way and your way of benefiting and fellowshipping and sharing with the other person what you have experienced in the presence of God. Because you can come to church and not get in his presence. Because oftentimes you can be distracted by certain people that you like or don't like, or by certain things that you have heard, or you can just come looking for a mate. You know, you come in and look and see, find somebody up here in the house of God that just might suit the way I live. There's many distractions in the house of God. But when one focuses on Jesus, you have to shut out all of the distractions so that your soul can walk out of here blessed with the fellowship and with the power of the living God. These people didn't really care what other people thought, because anytime a leper would come into a crowd and seek out Jesus when he should be declaring, "I'm unclean," he must not have cared whether or not they would put him in jail or whether they would ostracize him. They didn't matter to them what other people thought. It didn't matter to them what other people thought was possible. Because you can never be in a crowd and not have mixed conceptualization and mixed emotions and different thinking. You have to press your faith through the opposition of ignorance. You have to press your way through the opposition of envy. You have to press your way through the opposition of people who think that unless they are involved, unless I prayed with you, or when I prayed, God moved, when I prayed, he made a way. You have to press your way through how you came in here dressed. You have to press your way through what you drove up in. You have to press your way through whether you took a bus. It doesn't matter how I got here. I just want to get into the presence of the Lord. And it doesn't matter what you think about me, as long as I walk out of his presence with a miracle that I'm looking for. I would ask you, who is to say what can happen? Oh God, who is to say what his will is? We find out when we're in his presence, and in his presence my faith meets his grace. Oh, I feel like shouting now. It's in his presence that prayers are answered. It's in his presence that power is released. It's in his presence that joy is restored. It's in his presence that the deepest need that's brought to him with confidence, oh God, is met. If I walk in this house with nothing else on my mind, then I want to be blessed, and only the Lord can bless me. And I believe with expectation as I stretch my neck forth that I'm not leaving here without a greater walk and a greater connection to God. I didn't come here just to dress up and sit around and meet a couple people. I came here so that God could put in me something that was not in me before I got here, so that when I leave here, I will leave here not just having heard a song, but having the spirit of the song. Not just having heard a prayer, but having the spirit of a prayer. Not just having heard a word, but receiving the spirit of the word, so that when I walk out of here, I can walk into the devil's kingdom and tell him, I have received a blessing from the Lord. I don't want to come in here depressed and leave depressed. I don't want to come in here sad and leave sad. I don't want to come in here mad and leave mad. I want to come in here and leave differently than when I came in. I want to be better off for the experience. Y'all excuse me. I'm getting happy too quick. Prayer then is redefined as faith bringing need to Jesus. And what it says is that faith is one coming to Jesus with confidence in Jesus. and confidence in what he can do. It is interesting that you can't really serve God intensely if you have no needs. You can't serve him intensely if you feel like everything in your life is fine. It's when you know that there are some gaps, and when you know there are some things that you just have to have from him. Oh God, it's a different kind of prayer when you know unless he does this, it will not be done. Unless he opens that door will never come open. It's got to be when there is, and I was arguing with myself as I was meditating on this. Is it desperation? Is it a sense of desperation that brings you to him with intensity? The kind of situation that is so on edge that you have to be careful whether or not it is a situation that'll cause you to give up. You know, there is a situation that'll cause you just to throw your hands up and say, this is a tsunami, man. I'm just gonna let it go and let it wash me out. But that same situation given to somebody who has faith does not become a place to give up, but rather it becomes a place to become intense. It does not become a place where I throw up my hands, but it becomes a place where I say, I will not let him go until he bless me. Because if I don't hold on to him now, I'm lost. And I'm going to grab hold to him. And whatever I have to do, I'm going to do. But I'm not leaving here dead. I'm leaving here with life everlasting. Oh God, I'm almost there. I'm preaching awful fast. If you notice now, grace then is need. And it's vital to the gospel as Jesus. You've got to have, when you come in here, the kind of hunger that says I must be satisfied. Have you ever got up in the night and wanted something to eat? Didn't know what you wanted to eat, and you were willing to get in the car and go across town in the middle of the night to find something to eat, especially if it's not in your refrigerator. Oh, you'll get in a car in pajamas and go to a drive-in to get, I'm talking to somebody, I saw you laughing. Oh yeah, to get what you want to eat. And I hear the Lord saying, do you want it bad enough that you'll come any way you are and ignore how others are looking at you? Because I need this blessing. I got to have this blessing. I can't go another day without it. And I'm not letting go of him until he does it. The church is full of people with no needs. And because they have no needs, they have no consecration. And because they have no consecration, they have no power. And they don't have any passion for worship. Or they don't have any passion for praise. Because, it's just another entertainment. And all the vocals are wonderful. And sometimes, good no, you sophisticated Southern Californians, we got to almost spin and jump and go through hoops. We have to have praise teams to lead you all in worship. Like you all don't have nothing to worship for except the affection and infection of the praise team. Oh God, just come on and raise your hands and come on, let's sing and let's lift him up. And the poor praise team is working in order to get you to a place where you can lift him up. And you just sit back and be entertained and not engaged. There's a difference between having heard a song and when the song is over, you just clap your hands. Or the difference between hearing a song and being engaged because something in that song brought you back to a place where you remembered how God delivered you, and you want to tell the praise team, you don't have to sing this one for me, I can sing it for myself. I feel a breakthrough coming here. Bruner says this, Professor Dale Bruner, he says this, and I quote, he says, this does not mean that we cannot come to Jesus unless we are hurting. It does mean that we do not have to feel our problems, our obstacles to prayer that are its stuff, unquote. There is authority in the word, and there's authority in action. That's why you've got the 5 miracles of grace that is found in chapter 8. And then you've got the 5 miracles of freedom that is found in chapter 9. And faith then is common in all 10, because the miracles of grace taught the width of Jesus's reach to those who are farthest away, to the lepers, of course, to the Gentiles, to the women, to the cowards, even to the demoniacs. And the miracles of freedom taught the way to freedom is through faith in Jesus Christ. I don't need to be bound in sin. I don't need to be bound in poverty. I don't need to be bound in sickness. If I can just find my way to freedom through the power of faith in Jesus Christ, if I can believe God that he's able to bring me out, and to believe God, you've got to believe him through every discouragement that you have had. Oh God, I feel it here. I need a chair. I'm weak 2 ways. My back hurts and I lost all that weight. I thought my liver was leaving the other night. The 5 miracles of grace. Oh my God, the one writer graded the miracles of grace. Thank you. He said the leper's faith was personal. It was modest and it was confident, because he said, if you want to, you can make me whole. And he graded that faith as an A. The centurion's faith was excellent, but his circumstance was not as despicable, because he had no pain with it. So he graded that faith as B. The mother-in-law, nothing is recorded about her faith, so it was neither good nor bad, so it's graded a C. The disciples' faith was a low pass at best, because the first thing he said to those cowards was, "O ye of little faith," and he accused them of cowardice, yet witnessing all his previous works. You know, how can you sit in church and see the power of God and be on the boat with him and everywhere else, and you are experiencing all his wonder, yet when it comes your time, he has to tell you, "O ye of little faith"? So let's give them a D. He's insulted by and approached by the hostility of the demonic spirit, and they were hostile towards him. Let's give them an F. And yet still, even though he praised faith, he praised the bearers of faith, he measured faith, he rebuked the coward, he was silent, he ignored the insult, but he never walked away from faith, no matter what grade it had. All I've got to do is come to him any way I can, believing that he will make a way out of no way. And I want to know, do you still have any faith in you for the fight that is before you, so you can tell the devil, "I'll take the ceiling off, but I will be blessed"? I feel like preaching. I'm almost there. This is the gospel. He is the star. Ain't ain't got nothing to do with you. He is the star. And all you got to do is get with him. He praises big faith. Yet he does not require big faith. He'll tell you faith as a grain of mustard seed is good enough for me. I've heard enough legalistic preaching. Y'all excuse me, this belt is a little too tight. I've heard enough legalistic preaching that requires big faith for big help. Oh God, I've heard enough stuff in church that just completely goes against anything that is biblical. How do you absolute surrender? Somebody tell me, how do you absolute surrender? And which one of us have ever got to total commitment? I wish you'd talk to me here. What is entire yielding? Oh God, every one of us is holding back a little bit of something. Give your neighbor a high five and say, you look real sanctified, but what are you holding back? If you were to wait for God to bless you because you had absolute surrender, I mean, where is that? And total commitment? You sit right here in church and thinking about what you're going to eat for lunch and wondering when the preacher's going to hurry up and get done so you can go get some shrimp and grits. I feel like preaching here. What is absolute surrender? Have you absolutely surrendered anything to God? Absolute? If that is the case, he would not have to impute righteousness. He's got to give you something you ain't never gave him. And yet still we talk about outside work, rosaries and nirvanas, satisfactions and pilgrimages and confessions. And we preach things from the pulpit that are hard to measure up. And we try to perfect our approach and study our methods. Our theology begins to grade faith and gratifies it. But I heard justification by faith is not justification on the basis of faith, but it's just simply divine help. No matter what the quality of faith, no matter what the quantity of faith, no matter what the depth of faith, no matter what the totality of faith, just come. Oh, I feel the Holy Ghost. Pull on your brother and sister and say, stop measuring what you got. Just come. Oh, I feel like shouting here. I might have to preach the rest of it when I get stronger. Faith has a one-track mind. It must get in touch with Jesus, and it will touch him. And that's why I came to tell you that when faith walks in the room, the first thing that faith says is, let's get the ceiling out of the way. Because when I come here to see Jesus, everything that's over my head has got to come out of the way. Do you know how many people have a tendency to turn around when there is no room for them? But I've learned something about faith. It doesn't sit around and wait for somebody to make room. Only complainers do that. Bring that chair around here, please. That folk that want somebody to make sure you have a seat and make sure you have a parking space and somebody to watch out for you. Some people can't get to church unless they call somebody and say, I'm on my way. Make sure I can get on the lot. But when you're hungry and when you're thirsty, it doesn't matter where you park. You can take your high heels off, put some slippers on, and walk for 12 blocks. And then when you get to church, you put the slippers in your purse and put your Louboutin back on and have some church. Because I didn't come because it's easy. I came because I needed a blessing. I feel like lifting him up. This past year has been a test for me because I've been sick in all kinds of ways. But God told me every now and then you got to have some folk with you who are willing to take the roof off. He couldn't carry himself. He had somebody to carry him. But when they came and found they couldn't get in, going back home was not on the agenda. Give somebody a high five and say, going back home without my blessing is not on my agenda, because I came to get a blessing from the Lord, and nothing will stop me from receiving what's mine. Give somebody a high five. Say, I don't want what's yours, but I want what's mine. I don't want your money, but I want mine. I don't want your healing, but I want mine. I don't want your praise, but I want mine. I don't want your joy, but I want mine. I don't want your victory, but I want mine. So break up the roof, break it up, break it up, but don't take me back home. Break it up till I can see his face. Somebody holler, get the ceiling, get it off. Woo! I'm getting ready to close. Give somebody a high five for the last time and say, neighbor, you're one step away from the business you want. You're one step away from a better financial place. You're one step away from your healing. You're one step away from your door opening. Don't let the roof stop you. Don't let the ceiling keep you down. Break it up. That place where you would throw up your hands is the place of your breakthrough. I want you to hear that. That place, at the same place where others quit, is the same place you get your breakthrough, depending on what you believe. The same place where people miss how powerful God is the same place where others have found out what his power is all about. It's the same place. That place of complete discouragement is the place to exhibit great faith. It's the same place. Hear me when I tell you. So when you're pushed to the point of letting go, that's the time to hold on. Oh, I'm talking to somebody here. When you're at the point where you walk away from it, is the point where things are about to break through. God allows you to come to the point so you'll be confident only in him, because everything else is showing you it's all over. And that's the time you and your team begin to pull the ceiling off. I got to get in here to see Jesus. And you can't have a bunch of folk around you that's ready to go back home. Well, we can't get in, we need to go back home. You didn't carry me over here to carry me back. You carried me over here so I can walk back. Woo! Give somebody a high five and say, neighbor, I'm walking back. You ain't carrying me back. I'm walking back. I ain't borrowing no more money from you. You didn't carry me to Jesus to keep on borrowing. You carried me to Jesus so I can lend somebody. Somebody's in this house.